This is Between the Uprights.
Football is life. The rest is just details.
Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
Justin Herbert has set all kinds of quarterback records, from rookie records to first 4 season records to first 5 season records. The guy has over 20,000 yards. He's thrown tons of touchdowns, very few picks, but all of these are regular season numbers. And when it comes to the playoffs, my man is not the same guy. In fact, I have the numbers right here. Don't worry, I'm going to get into them right off the bat. Justin Herbert during the regular season averages 267 yards per game. The guy throws almost 2 touchdowns per game and has under 1 INT per game on average at 0.6 with a 66.5% completion percentage. Those numbers are just outrageously good. He has been a great regular season quarterback, and we've all acknowledged the fact that most of the time when he loses a game, it was due to the coach on the sideline. Brandon Staley ruined this kid's chances of having more playoff opportunities, and we all acknowledge that as a collective NFL fan base, as a collective NFL just culture, all right? Brandon Staley ruined the chances of this kid for the first 4 years. And it's, here he is. Jim Harbaugh comes in. We think it's all going to change, and yet in the playoffs, Justin Herbert averages 257.5 yards per game, 10 yards less. He throws only 1 touchdown per game, and he has a 2 INT per game, and 4 of those INTs came this past weekend against the Texans, and his completion percentage drops 14.5 points in the playoffs down to 52%, which is abysmal. And that begs the question, have we been giving Justin Herbert a pass because of how good he has been in the regular season? And if so, can we officially say that Justin Herbert is what people have called Lamar Jackson all this time? He's just a regular season quarterback. And you know what? Chargers fans, it's like rubbing salt in the wound, isn't it? But you know what? That's what we're here for. Let's rub some salt in the wound, baby. So I'm going to go to Sammy, our resident salt in wound rubber, the guy who loves to get the grit going and absolutely feel the burn. Sammy, give us some of that. Rub the salt in the wound.
Yeah, and I feel it extra because of all the sea salt that I have to go to when I go to Miami Beach. By the way, all right, I'll say this. I'll start with this, Joe. Justin Herbert can make any throw. He can make any throw. He can. What throw can he not make, Matt, Chris? Joe, what throw can he not make? He can make all the throws. Oh my goodness, he's so good, right? Like he can just you just named all the stats, Joe. This guy constantly breaking records. I remember his rookie season. I could not hear the end of it because you guys know who my quarterback is. It's Tua Tagovailoa. So, you better believe I've been waiting for times like this. Okay, now I want to say this: Justin Herbert, he's actually a really good QB, and I still think he's a top 10 QB. I want to make that very clear. I still do think he's a top 10 QB. Here's the problem. He sucks come playoff time. I don't understand what the heck you Chargers fans think this is. I'm going to go ahead and name you the stats without the 86-yard touchdown pass to Ladd McConkey, because no way I'm including that. Okay, that was all Ladd McConkey. We're going to completely cut that out. Here are the statistics. He went 13 of 31 passing, 156 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. That's a career high, by the way. And the last time the Chargers quarterback threw for 4 interceptions in the postseason was 1995. Joe, can you find his name? I don't even remember what this dude's name was. Whatever his name is, I mean, Justin Herbert is in the books with him. So congratulations on that, Justin Herbert. Now,
Dan Humphries.
Dan Humphries. Who the hell is that? Yeah, Justin Herbert.
Stan the man Humphries.
Okay, Joe, you might know who he is. I certainly don't. Okay, look. Quite frankly, I'm gonna just wrap this up on a bow tie. The defense forced 2 turnovers in the first half, and they forced a turnover to begin the second half. So yes, the defense kind of started to fall apart towards the end of the game, right? But I'll factor that more for fatigue because Justin Herbert couldn't make a throw to save his life this game, and even if he did make the throw, it was moot. Now, I get it. There were some drop balls, and one of the interceptions was a drop pass, okay? Understand that. But that's not fun to make fun of, okay? Regardless of that, regardless of that, he still had a terrible game. He still had one of the worst games of his career. As a matter of fact, I'm going to just go ahead and say it. He had the worst game of his career in the playoffs in a game I'm pretty sure they were favored in. A team that has changed the culture. The vibes were high. Jim Harbaugh, right? Your defense was great for nothing. For nothing. So from here on out, let's go ahead and settle it. No more excuses. No more passes for the Golden Boy. This man, Justin Herbert, has been passed over so many times when it comes to the blame game. So many times this has happened. And I'm glad finally. Look, I know this is kind of me just lurking around the bushes, right? Just waiting for this moment to happen. But the truth is that I was hearing a lot of, this QB can't prove it in the playoffs. This QB can't prove it in the playoffs. What the hell had Justin Herbert proved? Absolutely nothing. And with an opportunity to prove it, to win his first playoff game, he has as many QB wins as Tua Tagovailoa, who's made one playoff appearance. So I understand this is me being a little petty since Tua is my QB. I'm a little petty. Absolutely. You're right. You are. And if I were to pick between Tua and Herbert, you're probably right. I probably would have picked Herbert, okay? But, however, that does not mean that Justin Herbert is just away from criticism. We're done with that. I'm done with that. I know Matt is done with that. I'm hoping Chris is done with that. Joe, I know you're done with that too. We're all here between the uprights done with that.
Yeah, criticism's coming really fast, Chargers fans, and we're here for it. But Sammy inadvertently he probably didn't know this, because Stan Humphries in that playoff game where he threw 4 interceptions was going up against the Indianapolis Colts. And in 1995, does anyone know who the quarterback was for the Indianapolis Colts?
Jim Harbaugh.
I'll go ahead and tell you. It was Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers.
So he's familiar with this. So he's familiar with that.
You've seen Chargers quarterback. The last time the Chargers quarterback threw 4 picks in the playoffs, Jim Harbaugh was
So he should have expected this. That's what we should have done. We should have expected this. I should have known. I should have known, Joe.
Oh man. That is a wild coincidence, isn't it? In 1995, the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts was Jim Harbaugh, who beat the Chargers when Stan Humphries threw 4 picks. That is absolutely insane, and I did not realize that until I Googled it, and I wanted to see just how many times. By the way, Stan Humphries threw 4 picks in 3 different games that year. And still made the playoffs, in which that was his third game. He threw 4 picks. I just want to be honest with you, but you're right. It's hard to we say we want to give criticism, and honestly, we're as NFL fans, and Steelers fans can attest to this, is that winning is okay, right? But you're not in it just to win games. You're not in it to break records, right? No player at the end of the year or at the end of their career goes, I broke a lot of records. That's never what you want. You want playoff success. You want Super Bowls. And right now, Justin Herbert looks like the lights are too bright when the biggest games he's in. And granted, no one expected Houston to win that game at home as the underdog at home, as the force, because they really hadn't shown anything on offense in a hot minute. They had tons of offensive players who were out for the season. They had, their 2 top wide receivers were put on IR between Stephon Diggs. It just doesn't make sense, right? They've dealt with injuries all year. They haven't found consistency. They haven't looked that great. And yet, a Chargers team who had been controlling the ball, had been running the ball well, had been controlling the clock with a very smart, witty head coach, a quarterback that only turned the ball over 3 times through 3 interceptions all year, and he doubles that total +1 in a game. Match like that's insane, right? Like it's 4 interceptions in a game from a guy who'd only thrown 3 all year is an anomaly that you just don't see. And it's not like the Texans have a great defense. So, Chris, I'm going to go to you on this one. Obviously, Matt, we're going to get to Matt's in a second, but Sammy and I are on the same spot here. Like this loss, that is Justin Herbert. You as a quarterback cannot turn like that. That's Justin Herbert. I think Sammy and I are on the same page here. Are you on the same page with us?
So let's have a conversation. Let me take these off because they hurt my face. Let's have a conversation. The glasses. They should have came off as soon as it started. So let's talk, guys. Justin Herbert, right? He's kind of been on everybody's high horse, I feel like, for the last 5 years, which is when he came in. So he's been in the league for 5 years. He's been in 2 playoff bursts in those 5 years, and he has 0 playoff wins. Do you know who's only been in the league for 1 year who has more playoff wins than him already?
Jaden Daniels.
Jaden Daniels. Correct. So, in my opinion, and also, you're looking at the 0 playoff wins, in my opinion. Both of those playoff losses were embarrassing. Both of them. In 2022, they gave up, I believe, a 24-point lead. Lost that game. This year, they just get manhandled. Lost that game. So we do have to have this conversation. Justin Herbert is obviously a very talented QB. There's no doubting that. He's been top 10, top 12-ish since he came into the league in 2020, right? Yes, he's a starting QB in the NFL. However, Justin Herbert is a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. It is what it is. Realistically, he's not elite. He's not an alpha. He doesn't command the attention of the defense. He doesn't really immediately scare you when he gets on the field. And he doesn't scare you if he has the ball and they're down in the fourth quarter and they have 50 seconds left on the clock and it's a 4-point game. He doesn't scare you. Now, here's the difference. If y'all listen to Dan Campbell's interview, it was either earlier today or yesterday. I just saw it on IG today. Dan Campbell has already come out on record coming into the Lions matchup against the Commanders and has already emphasized just how electric and dangerous Jaden Daniels is. Now, when you look at that, and you say, what team is saying that coming into this type of game in the playoffs is saying that about Justin Herbert? They're not. They're not. Justin Herbert is just not that guy. So when I look at Justin Herbert now, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate probably from both sides, and I understand it. It is what it is. Justin Herbert to me is Brock Purdy. That's exactly who he is. He has a little bit more juice when it comes to throwing the he has a little bit more agility to move around and scramble. That's it. Now, if you think I'm lying, let me just tell you. This is just looking at this year, okay? Because they both pretty much got because a lot of Purdy's teammates were hurt, right? So he didn't have a ton of good weapons, and neither did Justin Herbert. And I feel like they're the same guy because they have the same stats, no matter if they have the good players or bad players. So this year alone, you have Herbert, who is at 387, 9th, right? Okay. You got Brock Purdy, who's at 3,864 at 10th, right behind each other. 23 touchdowns for Herbert. He's 12th. Guess what? Brock Purdy, 20 touchdowns. He's 15th. The only good stat that you have that's different is Justin Herbert only had 3 interceptions. Well, guess what? He's also thrown the ball less in that equation. So, yeah, he's not making as many turnovers interception-wise, but he's also not throwing the ball as well either. And then, yeah, I get it. Especially when it came to the playoff, yes, there were times when the ball was missed by his wide receiver. But if you looked at several of them, and I think I mentioned them in the Discord during the game, they were just complete fucking overthrows. Completely that was 2 huge overthrows that could have completely changed that game. Justin Herbert, he can't. He's not a Jaden Daniels, and this is the biggest difference. Jaden Daniels in his rookie year looks at the bright lights and he's perfectly fine with it. He's poised. He gets things done. He's good. He's a great fucking quarterback, and he's only a fucking rookie. And he has a better way of handling that bright light than Justin Herbert. He's had the worst playoff games. He only has fucking 2, and he has the worst playoff games, I think, of probably 10 or 15 other quarterbacks, and some of them aren't even fucking playing anymore. And he's worse than them. It's too much. I'm not downing the guy. He's a mid-level, middle grade. That's what he is. He's a middle grade quarterback who will get you some wins in the regular season. If you get to the playoffs, you don't expect much. I don't expect him to get to a defensive round. I don't expect him to get to an AFC championship. And I definitely damn sure don't expect him to get to a Super Bowl. And I don't look at them as a Super Bowl contender, to be honest. They're just a mid-level team.
My toes are curling right now. This is crazy.
So If you're new to Between the Uprights, Chargers fans, and you probably didn't make it this point in the episode, we have a history of pissing off franchises
I apologize.
when we first start
I
talking
know.
about them. And I think that, Chris's pick of the Chargers against the Texans really, and then them letting her down really, she's lashing out. Maybe there's some things there I agree with. There's some things I don't agree with. However, it's hard to argue when he hasn't done it. And granted, we already said Brandon Staley was the reason they didn't get a chance early on. But when you have Jim Harbaugh and you throw 4 picks, which at least good on Justin Herbert, he acknowledged I let the team down. That was what he said. He 10 toes in the dirt and took accountability, which is something that a lot of quarterbacks, that when we talk about this sort of situation, they don't do, right? Like a lot of times when you see a quarterback that does this, they don't take accountability. He took accountability. I respect that. I like that. And a guy shows character. And I think that's important, right? Because a team can rally behind a guy like that. However, this has kind of been the story of the Chargers since even Philip Rivers was under center, and those problems were they were just never good enough to beat Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, but at least they had success, right? They saw AFC championship games. Like I said, I may not agree with everything Chris said, but do I see this Chargers team led by Justin Herbert making an AFC championship game with the landscape in the AFC the way that he has shown in the playoffs that he plays? I really don't. Not in the foreseeable future. Maybe at the tail end of his career, but I almost don't believe that he's got a shot at it. But Matt, you heard Matt, or you heard Sam, you heard Joe. We all heard Chris.
Damn.
Earthquake shattering.
I don't
shit.
apologize.
I thought I was scathing. I didn't even burn anything.
Yeah.
Oh man, nah.
It wasn't because I dislike the guy. It's just being fucking
Are you
honest.
sure?
You go and look at their stats. They're the same fucking
Matt.
guy. Literally,
Matt.
it's the same dude.
Matt.
Go ahead, Matt.
Just saying, much deeper.
I don't even know how you follow it up. We could end it here. And just
Well,
be like,
listen.
yeah, what Chris said.
Listen, I have stuff to say, and I wasn't going to even plan on dumping on Justin Herbert because I had a feeling people were going to dump on Justin Herbert anyway. And people, if you're a Chargers fan and you made it this far in the video, like, claps for you. Like, geez, Louise, you just love pain, man, because that was rough. But listen, what everybody, I don't agree with him being a mid-tier quarterback. I think I still have him in my top 10, despite that performance. But it's fair to criticize. His 2 playoff games, one of them you blew a 27-point lead to the Jags, and one of them you had 4 interceptions and lost by 20 points when you were the favorite. That's just, you can't have it. You can't possibly get away with that with no criticism. And again, the criticism is justified. Everything is justified. I'm just not going to come in here and do it because, again, I would be beating a dead horse based on what these two just did. That was incredible displays of just dominance over a human being. What you guys just did, that was crazy. But yeah, I don't know what the word I was looking for was over.
He said dominance.
Listen, I don't know what the word I was looking for was there. But listen, okay, I'm going to give some motivation to Justin Herbert here. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Okay, Justin Herbert, how do you want to be remembered? Okay, how do you want to be remembered, Justin Herbert? In my opinion, there's 3 options how he could still be remembered. I think it's still on the board. It's easily the least likely outcome, but it's still on the board that he's an all-time great quarterback. It is still on the board. He's got that type of talent. He's got that type of skill set. He can still be that. We saw Peyton Manning have struggles early in his career in the playoffs. Drew Brees doesn't have a super historic playoff resume. Aaron Rodgers, guys like that, they aren't known for their playoff performances, right? And again, they all won Super Bowls eventually, right? But they didn't win them early on, okay? So you could be that, okay? You could be talented and then eventually win a Super Bowl with a different team. Okay, that's Matthew Stafford. Same thing he just did. He was with a historically bad franchise and he changed teams, won a Super Bowl, but his talent was undeniable. We all know how talented Matthew Stafford was, but he never really got to show it in the postseason because he was with the Lions, and the Lions and the Chargers, despite previous years from the Lions, they weren't the best franchise in previous years. And then are you going to be one of the best quarterbacks to never win a ring? That's another list that you could be on. And obviously there's a lot of quarterbacks on that list as well, and I'll get to that. But listen, as far as this goes, I say we have to give him a little bit of time. He's 26 years old. Okay, let's not panic completely. Okay, the criticism is justified, but let's not completely panic on him. Okay, he's 26 years old. Although it is going to be really hard for him to be an all-time great quarterback because 4 quarterbacks in his own conference right now are definitively like 100% better. Okay, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow. all 4 automatically better. They're all in the same conference, and you have to go through them every year. That's going to make it really hard for you to be all-time great as far as that goes. But I will list the all-time greatest quarterbacks and when they won their first Super Bowl. I'm going from 1980s until present, okay? In order from youngest to oldest. Big Ben was 23. Mahomes was 24. Brady was 24. Joe Montana, 25. Troy Aikman, 26. Brett Favre was 27. Aaron Rodgers was 27. Kurt Warner was 28. Peyton Manning was 30. Drew Brees, 31. Steve Young, 33. John Elway, 37. So 7 of those guys are older than Herbert is now and had early playoff struggles, okay? So I'm not closing the door on Herbert just yet, okay? But I think his most likely comp is the one I said earlier, which is you're a really talented quarterback with a historically bad team that changes teams and wins a Super Bowl. I think his comp right now is Matthew Stafford, okay? Even just watching him play, big, strong quarterbacks, they use their mobility to throw, but mostly play from the pocket. They can make any throw. They have huge numbers, but they have very limited playoff appearances because they play for historically snake-bitten franchises, and they have nothing to show for it, right? So Stafford had to change teams to win Super Bowls at 34, and he's not considered an all-time great, but has tremendous talent. Like I mentioned, he is on the all-time great list as far as, in a previous video I mentioned, as far as his yards per game in the playoffs and his passer rating for the playoffs. So again, he's showed since moving to the Rams that he can be that, right? But I think the more likely list that he ends up on is best quarterbacks to never win a Super Bowl. And again, I'm going from 1980 until present. And this is not my personal list. I just looked up best quarterbacks to never win a Super Bowl on Google. And these are the guys who came up, okay? Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, Phillip Rivers, Warren Moon, Donovan McNabb, Steve McNair, Dan Fouts, Matt Ryan, Boomer Esiason. Now, what 2 names on that list stick out to you? Because the 2 names on that list that stick out to me were the easiest comps in the world. It's Dan Fouts and Phillip Rivers. Why? Because they both played for the Chargers. And the one that's staggering, and this is staggering how similar these 2 are, is Phillip Rivers and Dan Fouts. For those of you who don't know, Dan Fouts, he's now a commentator for CBS. He does some of the play-by-play in games, and he's one of the early greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's Hall of Famer, retired 2nd all-time in passing yards and 4th all-time in touchdowns, led the league in yards per game 6 times, 3rd in playoff pass yards per game. So he's got a really, really nice resume to him. But his playoff stats, he was 3-4, 12 touchdowns, 16 interceptions, and a 70 quarterback rating. Here's what's wild, okay? Dan Fouts' first playoff game. Chargers scored 14 points. Fouts had 5 picks, a 36.3 rating. And you know who they lost to? A team from Houston, that being the Oilers in 1979. Justin Herbert, this was his second playoff game, scored 12 points, had 4 picks, a 40.9 rating. And you know who they lost to? A team from Houston, the Houston Texans. Through 2 playoff starts, Dan Fouts, 2 touchdowns, 6 picks, a 59 rating, and a 1-1 record. Justin Herbert, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks, a 60.7 rating, and an 0-2 record. So where Justin Herbert is at right now is where Dan Fouts was about 45 years ago. Okay, that's exactly where he was. Okay, and again, we remember Dan Fouts as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time that never won a Super Bowl. I think that's the trajectory that Justin Herbert's on right now. But again, how do you want to be remembered, Herbert? Do you want to be remembered as an all-time great that got over some early playoff struggles and eventually won a Super Bowl, a talented quarterback that eventually won a Super Bowl with a different team, or one of the best quarterbacks to never win a ring? How do you want to be remembered? How he reacts to Sunday's game is going to determine that. Either this game defines you as a great player who can't play in the playoffs for your whole career, or this game is your turning point. After this game, he made huge adjustments and became a much better playoff performer and eventually won a Super Bowl. And we can look back on this game and say, hey, this was the game that you turned it around. But that's going to be up to Justin Herbert. That's going to be up to you. You to look yourself long and hard in the mirror, my friend, and you're going to see those golden blonde locks in the mirror, and they're going to be staring right back at you, and you're going to have to determine who you really are. Are you going to be the all-time great? Are you going to be the guy who has to change teams to win a Super Bowl? Or are you going to be the best quarterback to never win a ring? That's going to be up to you, Justin Herbert, and we're going to find out which one it is.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.